welcome to the Southall household. We're going to show you how to use an atomic coffee machine properly. Amazing machines, had this for about 10 years, use it every day. We push through so many coffees out of this, it's incredible. Fresh coffee beans is a good idea, and we grind them up in our little Krups 1970s grinder, but you could just use whatever coffee you like. It allows you to do espresso, and it has a milk frother. And you can use this basically to make quality coffee that you could rival with anything at a cafe, in all honesty. I used to barista, and so there are some really important techniques I'm going to teach you now, but you can make amazing coffee out of this. And what a beautiful design piece. This one's a little bit crusty at the moment because we flog it, but you might want to make yours look a little bit nicer, but it does the job day in and day out. But it's important to get all the steps right, otherwise you'll end up with pretty average coffee. First of all, we are going to, I put the water in first. With these seals, you don't want to be closing them too tight. It's a bit of a Goldilocks scenario, not too tight, not too loose. If you go too tight, you're going to wear these seals out. These are the original seals, they're still fine. But if you over tighten them, you'll tend to create issues. If you don't tighten them enough, then you'll get leakage and you'll get steam and all sorts of stuff happening. So, I use a milk jug. It doesn't come with the atomic, but you want to get that from like a kitchen supply store or something like that. So I use that to put the water in. I get the water in, I start turning on the water so that by the time I do all the rest of it, it's sort of already in the process of heating up. So then I tip this out to the side and I pour in the water. Now you can actually hear it when it's getting close to the top. Yeah, you can hear it coming up. I don't always go to the top, but obviously the steam comes from the amount of water you put in there. If there's a bit too much water, for example like this, let's say I kept going, I'll sometimes just tip it out a little bit like that. If you're only doing one coffee, you don't need it to be necessarily full, but you may as well do that because to get the full pressure from the steamer, you need to do that. So close that, not too tight, but just nice and firm. Then I get the gas going. You need gas. You can't use this on an induction stove because it's aluminium. That'll be really bad. But you can get an adapter plate that you put on top of the induction stove if that's what you've got at home. So once that's on, I don't want to go too low, it'll take too long. I don't want to go too high, otherwise I might start melting the plastic on these pieces here. So I've just got used to the sound of the gas and it's like, I can tell when it's perfect. In the morning, it'll take a bit longer to come through. If you've done a coffee and you're doing it again, it's a lot quicker because the water's already warmed up inside. So then I hold this to open this. You've got to hold the whole thing. Here's your, whatever you call it, your, there's a name for it. It'll come to me because some machines have one and some have two. Anyway, so coffee there, we actually we compost our coffee beans. They're like so good. They're really good for compost. Then rinse it out. Meanwhile, so I just basically put it in here, rinse all this, and then I leave it sit for a little bit so that it drips out a bit of the water. And I've got my coffee ready. Obviously, if I need to grind that, I will grind that, and then basically we put our coffee in. It's quite deep, this one. If you filled it up too much, some people use just too much coffee. If you are only doing one coffee, you don't need more than half. But because we're both doing a coffee now, we're going to do two. We'll fill it up a bit more. For a long time, I just used a spoon to pat it down. I've recently bought a tamper, which was actually through the Atomic website, I believe, or maybe it was Temu, no idea. But it works pretty well. Push it down hard. So then you've got your coffee ready to go. Make sure that's all cleaned out so you don't get any issues with the seal. So you put it up, turn it. You got to hold this here because otherwise if you're trying to turn it, you might slip it off the stove. Obviously be aware this can get really hot. So for a long time when the kids were young, I'd make sure after I used it, I'd always put it to the back. So I was worried they'd come out and go, oh, what's this? And then start grabbing it, and then it's really, really hot. So now that's going. I've cleaned the spout. You've got to clean the spout after each session. If you don't, and I'm going to show you the best way to do that. If you don't, it's going to get clogged up and then you won't get the steam you want. There is a little trick if it does get clogged up that I tend to use, which is one of these waiter's friends. And it's got a thing to open an old cork bottle, which is obviously pretty rare these days. But that there, you can get into the 3 different holes and just give them a bit of a twist and a clean out. But as long as it gets used properly, someone who's been using it hasn't been cleaning. I can tell because it'll just get locked up and then that sucks when you're waiting for your nice coffee. So obviously you need to be thinking about putting that there. Don't go away and come back and it's dropped out everywhere. And I'm going to tell you the most important thing about the Atomic coffee machine that I believe a lot of people get wrong, really wrong, is that you don't want all the coffee to come through. If you look at the atomic, this is a Sorrentina, by the way. It's a copy of the original design, designed by this guy, Robiati. But atomic Sorrentina, same kind of, exactly the same design. You'll see a lot of videos, and even on some of the distributors' websites where they show that you walk away and you let all the coffee go through. Because obviously the amount of water in there roughly equals filling that up. No, bad idea. You only get a certain amount of the really good, rich coffee, which almost could be described as the crema you get in a professional high-end coffee machine. And then the first half's good, nice coffee. When it starts coming through nice quickly, and it starts going from a dark brown to more of a clear water colour, that's time to pull out. You don't want that stuff, because that's really bitter, horrible coffee. That's the secret. So you need to make sure that you get this off once you've got the good coffee. Now, how do you get that off while the water's running through? And then it gets a bit like you've got to be really thinking about what's going on at this particular time. So the secret, we've got this cup here that we've had since I was a kid. It gets flogged. There's a frog in there as well, and that basically just gets used all the time to contain it. And it's amazing. It's perfect, because basically you grab this, and I'm going to practice. I'm going to go like this. That one goes out. Ooh. Normally I don't do that. Anyway. That goes out and that goes under. See? And the good thing about this cup too, you can spill it and move it and it won't come out. It doesn't fall over. It's amazing. It's worked perfectly. So something I've had since I was 7 years old is still being used. Amazing. So that's ready to go. Meanwhile, the milk, because I use the milk to fill that up, one little thing to do, get rid of that. You don't really want to have any water while you're adding milk. And we'll add our milk. You can use oat milk or normal milk, whatever. If you use oat or almond, don't expect the frothing to be as easy. It's really hard. Even I struggle to get the milk consistency right. If you do have oat milk and almond, you've got to shake it a lot, and that'll help with the getting more of the the thicker part of the oat milk, which helps to get the froth. Now, the other thing about milk, you don't need as much as you think. So people who fill it up and waste it is silly. So for 2 coffees, that's probably all we need, because the milk will expand when you heat it up. So it actually ends up almost doubling in volume. Maybe not double, but 30% more. And if you get, it's just silly to waste all that milk. Now, here's the next really important tip, which was taught to me from a good friend Graham, who used to run a cafe called, it's down the road here, Snappy Tom, what's it called again? Can't remember. Anyway, I'll remember that in a minute. But Gas House Coffee in the early 2000s. And I used to work for him, and he taught me how to do milk. And the most important thing to understand about milk is that the way you froth it, you want the angle to go in. So we're going to go on a certain angle like this, which works well. So we tuck the coffee cup on that angle. And really, you're just trying to get a swirl. And it takes a little bit of time for the steam to activate the milk to get a swirl. And once it's swirling, it's all being heated up equally, which is important. And you're going just below the surface of the milk, which allows that process. If you don't concentrate and you drop it, you're going to get milk all over yourself. And if you go too low, you're just going to burn milk at the bottom. So it's actually quite important to get that right. Now, when do you stop? Well, it's not just one set time, because it depends on the temperature. If it's cold, it's going to take longer to heat up than it is in summer. Also, the amount of milk. So if you've got a little bit of milk or more, it's going to change how long it heats up. And the secret there is you're holding it with your hand while it's heating up. And when it's too hot to touch with your hand, and you take your hand off, generally about 5 seconds after that, it'll be perfect every time. There you go. Top secret. Very, very handy. Which is why you can make a coffee here, which is pretty much on level with a coffee shop, honestly. In fact, often better than a coffee shop if they've got an inexperienced barista. So the other thing, you've got to make sure you close that, because opening that allows the steam to come through. Basically, the water comes out, it gets to a certain temperature, it starts coming through the coffee, extracting all the beautiful coffee, and then the build-up of pressure means it eventually wants to come through here, and that's how it works. So if you have that open, you walk away, you come back, you'll notice it starts dripping water, and then you're losing the water pressure, and you're going to have a big mess everywhere. So you've got to make sure that's closed off. And later, once you do the milk, you've got to make sure you run as much steam through as you can at the end to clear out the nozzle. Otherwise, pretty much within 1 or 2 goes, it's clogged up, and that's no good. So we will pause. This is meanwhile coming together. I could crank it up a bit more, which would make it a bit quicker. And as soon as you start hearing that drip through, you've then got about a minute or 2. So we'll pause now and come back when the coffee's ready to go. It's dripping through, and we're getting really nice coffee. Not quite a crema. I would say you can't quite get that crema where you get that top layer of like coffee gold, but it is pretty good. And that's coming through right now. Meanwhile, the steam here is starting to build up. If I open that, you see there's a bit of water coming through, whereas if you do it at the right time, it's just steam. And you've got 3 different nozzles. That's just water, no big deal, but that's starting to build up. You wouldn't want to start steaming now because all the pressure will go from what's running through the coffee beans, and you lose that pressure. So you're waiting here, and it's slowly getting faster. This is all really good stuff. Lovely stuff. So that's good coffee. There's a whole other discussion here about what coffee to use. You can go crazy and spend lots of money on premium brands. Obviously fresh is probably more important than having beans in a grinder rather than just using stuff and having it in the fridge or the freezer for ages. I'll be honest, I'm actually just using Aldi coffee at the moment, dark roasted beans, because they're super affordable. And also they're from a roaster in Melbourne. They're actually pretty renowned. They've been doing it for about 12 years. It's actually pretty good. So if you look at the cost of that, plus the fact we often get 2 or 3 coffees in one hit, this is incredibly affordable compared to $5 in a cafe, which is just getting ridiculous. But anyway. All right, so it's coming through. You see here now, it's a little bit kind of like a crema, but I wouldn't say you can ever get it exactly like you find in a cafe. But what you can do is have an amazing coffee. And really the milk, if you get the milk right. So we've got 2 cups today, 2 glasses. I think I'm just going to use that one. I'm just going to use this one. We've probably got, I reckon, maybe a little bit too much milk, but that's all right. I always like it when I actually do the coffees and then the milk like finishes and then I've got not a drop left. Now, it's starting to come through a bit quicker. If it was just me, I'd pull it out now, but because there's a coffee for 2, I'm going to run it a bit as long as I possibly can. If I was to do 3 coffees, you never get 3 as good as 2, but you can certainly make 2 really good coffees. Then I would go even more coffee beans in the head, or whatever they call it, and then you can kind of just get 3 good coffees from my experience. But generally 2 will always be better. All right, so it's slowly coming through now. If you look at the top of it, it's still got a little bit of a brown sort of chocolate color to it, which is good. But as soon as that starts coming through really quickly, and it's quite time critical, and it becomes quite clear, then really all you have then is hot boiling water. It's not really something you want to drink. And this is where most people get it wrong, because they just wait until all this comes through. But that's going to be enough coffee for me now. I get this cup, I slide that out, slide that underneath at the same time. No spillage there. There we've got good coffee. Now it's time critical. We're running out of time, because that's going to start going through really quick. So we're going to pour the coffee. I usually pour it in 2 sets, so a little bit here, a little bit there, because the top bit's not quite as good as the bottom. So I share the love between the 2 coffees, or the 3 or whatever I'm doing. Like so. And use it all, that was a perfect amount of coffee. Rinse this, always rinse as you go. Quick rinse, put it over here. There, and then you can hear that starting to come through nice and quick now. Now's our window. Open it up a little bit, just to make sure it's just steam. Now come around this way. Then, you don't want to you want to get the cup underneath, then turn it on. Otherwise it'll spit up in your face. And you'll see here, I've tucked it in between the black and the brown here, and it's just below the surface. I can hear it. You might hear a bit of like hissing, and that's fine. And now you can hear that really nice sound. And see now what's going in here? We're starting to slowly get a bit of a swirl. Now, it's too hot to touch. Pull it off, about another 3 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, take it off. Like turn it off, then release it. If you take it out while the steam's on, it's going to flow it everywhere. You might do a little tap. Now, I turn the coffee off here. It's done. But that's still coming through. If I keep running it, it's going to potentially can overfill this. Right, so I'll tap this a bit. Don't ever pour it in that way. It's always better to pour it in on the side. Now you go down low and have a look as this is going in. All right. Look at that. And look, I almost nailed the milk. Now, if that ain't cafe grade, I don't know what it is. Now, of course, rinse this straight away. Make sure you give it a good rinse at the top, because milk will just stick around. And then you don't have to clean it every single time. You just do it as you go. Now, next critical point. I get a scourer, the scourer end, I wet the corner, I move this away a bit, and then I crank the steam up, and I basically clean the head like that. Now, there's a little more water this time than normal, but generally, it doesn't create that much of a mess. It's only water, and I'll leave it on so that it runs through all the way through, cleaning the nozzle. And then we have a very nice coffee. And honestly, you can sell that in a cafe, I believe. That's the secret to good coffee on your La Sorrentina or your atomic coffee machine. They're about $400 to $700. You can buy some old ones that are retro, which are sometimes available, like original ones. They're amazing. But I haven't even bought a single seal on this, and I've been using it every day I'm here for close to 10 years. So could not have, and it's a design piece. Look at it, it's beautiful. So There you go.